Okay, so blood atonement, what was it? The conclusion was, Danites say that there are 3 sins: adultery, murder, denying the Holy Ghost, that Christ's atonement didn't cover. Therefore, the Danites would now be willing to cast you out and trod you under because they love you so much. Okay, tell me, is this wrong? Okay, absolutely. Is Christ's atonement, limitless? All sins, absolutely. And suddenly you look, and these Danites, they are judge, jury, without ever telling the person that they've held some kind of court. But suddenly you're going to find, here's David Whitmer, one of the most well-to-do men in town. He now runs. Tell me, would you run? Okay, you heard wind of that? Suddenly, as much as I love school, I value my life more. And where does Whitmer run to? His brother John. Where does Phelps run? Where does Thomas B. Marsh? And they all run to a little town called Richmond, Missouri. That's your first town outside of Caldwell County. In other words, it's your first town outside of this reservation. So you'd say in Caldwell County by this point, we've got towns called like DeWitt, we've got Hans Mill, we've got, other towns, but suddenly these guys are now booking it out of town, and they're booking it to a place called Richmond, Missouri. Now, Richmond, Missouri, I'm hard-put to say anything good about the town then. And you'd say Richmond, Missouri viewed themselves as, we are on the border of the frontier, and it's our job to keep our newly elected governor, what would his name be? Lilburn W. Boggs, okay, as well his route, to keep him informed of how are the Mormons doing in Caldwell County. And to let him know, hey, they've stepped over the line, whatever they're doing, we're going to keep him informed. And you would say, this town built on rumors. You ever had somebody tell a rumor about you and you're like, what? It's not true, but it's so hard to catch back. These kind of feathers are going everywhere, and no, I didn't hit my child, no, I didn't, whatever it is. Okay. So suddenly, Richmond has been sending to Governor Boggs such things as, someone broke into our house and they stole an alarm clock. They then say, the Mormons are rising up, we need help, send troops. In other words, send the military to help. Richmond has written to Boggs and says, someone has broken into our chicken coop. They stole our chickens. Send help, the Mormons are on the uprise, we need help. At one point, they even wrote to Boggs saying, our town is now in ashes. And you're like, are you people clueless? You're writing from your home, you're at your desk, everything is wonderful, but they are very, very afraid. And they're saying to Boggs, send help. In other words, help us keep those Mormons, don't let them out. Well, suddenly, rushing out of Caldwell County are leaders that have known Joseph Smith, and they rush to Richmond. People in Richmond convince Thomas B. Marsh, and who else? Orson Hyde. You send a letter to Boggs, and you tell Boggs, here were your positions. You were in the quorum of the 12. You tell Boggs what you know. Well, suddenly, here's Thomas B. Marsh. He's writing a letter, and he's saying, Joseph is like a modern Mohammed. Joseph is arming 14,000 Indians. There's this stone cut out without hands, Danites. And it's going to fill the whole earth. It's going to fill the whole earth by military might. Send help. Okay, you got it? So Richmond, they run. Okay, one last before we break. Everybody going? I'm down to 4. Okay, we good? Okay. Meantime, here's Boggs. He's been aware of, quote, the Mormon problem since 1831 when Peter Whitmer Jr. is making a suit for him back in Jackson County. And so he's kind of followed it through. Some will say he was even among the mobs in Jackson County. And so he doesn't have good feelings about Mormons. And suddenly, he's had all these letters coming from Richmond, but is there any other town that could talk about it? You know, in other words, do I act? Do I react? What am I going to do? And now I got something from Orson Hyde, Thomas B. Marsh. Okay, I'm about to act, but suddenly we go to August now of 1838. So in August 1838, there was another town. And you realize Boggs, as governor, wants more supporting evidence. There was a town called Gallatin, and in Gallatin, there are Latter-day Saints, and there are those not of the faith from Missouri. It's an election day in August now of 1838, and soon it's about to be a fight. But on election day, they would, in this little town, they would convert a little log cabin that becomes their place to vote. In other words, you know, everybody show up, and back then, only men could vote in the United States, and, quote, white men. So, you know, you'd say prejudice alive and well, but okay, in this little town of Gallatin, it was like they had two names running for each office. First name, you know, on the ballot, mayor. You have those not of our faith, and then those who are Latter-day Saints. So it's like you've got a choice going down. It's either you vote for the old settlers from the South, or you vote for a new settler, a Latter-day Saint. Well, early in the morning, coming to the voting place, which is literally a little log cabin, first up in voting will be the old-time settlers, the Missourians. After they vote, instead of going home, they form a human wall around the polling place or where they voted. Now, how you form these human walls is you just lock your arms and then you hold your arms like this. And so suddenly they wrapped around, they held their arms like this with the idea, nobody else votes today. And guess what? We win the day. We win all of the elections. Well, okay, here come the Mormons. They want to vote. And they try to get in the polling place, and they're pushed away. In other words, we're not going to let you vote. We formed this kind of human wall with our arms. And pretty soon, one of the Mormons out there does a Danite cry for help. In other words, a secret cry, but he does it out loud. Suddenly, there will be a fight. And the fight is no more than 2 minutes. And it's kind of like, I've seen those kind of fights at football games, you know, and then you pull them back. I've seen them at bullfights, you know, and you pull them back, you know, they're in Mexico. You know, I've seen the fights standing in line for concert tickets. There's only so many tickets left, and somebody else crowds in front, and you're like, what? And, you know, you pull them back. Now, no one was killed. No one was wounded. You do have a LDS man, has a club in his hand. He hits somebody's head, but, you know, the person survives. Horrible headache, I'm sure. But nevertheless, nobody wounded, but suddenly Gallatin now sends a letter to Boggs and says, there's been a fight on election day. The result is Boggs now has all kinds of things. He's got thoughts since Jackson County. He's got the Mormons are supposed to move to Wisconsin. They didn't go. He's got, they're starting to step outside of the reservation. They're actually moving out into Gallatin. He's got Richmond. They're sending letters. You know, our place is burned to the ground. They've stolen an alarm clock, a chicken coop. Okay, he has all of this, and suddenly the fight at the polls. With this, in August, then of 1838, Governor Boggs calls out the entire state militia. In other words, he's not just calling out Jackson County. He's not just calling out military men from Clay County. He calls out the entire state militia with one exception, and the exception is any militia in Caldwell County. And as he calls them out, so if you were to say, here's all the state of Missouri, he's going to use the very same tactics they used in Jackson County. Every state militia is to go throughout their county, and they are to ask 2 questions. Can you name them? Joseph Smith the prophet. What else? Is the Book of Mormon the Word of God? You answer yes, you're a man, they're going to whip you, they're going to beat you. If you answer yes, you're a woman, they're going to physically, verbally abuse you. If you answer yes, you're a child, what are they going to do? Kidnap you. And then, to make sure you don't come back, they're going to loot your place and do what? Burn it. So what you get, the plan is, we're going to drive all the Mormons who are starting to spill outside of Caldwell County, we're going to force them all back in. Tell me, had he given his kind of like citizen soldiers, militias, did he say you can kill them? No. So from August until October of 1838, it's drive the Mormons and push them into then Caldwell County. So everybody's moving. You're like, oh, wow, I just was baptized over here. You're doing what? Yeah, we're pushing you, lady. You go, well, I'm up in this county. Well, buddy, we're moving you on. And we're going to put everybody back in Caldwell County, and we're going to say, no one gets out. Okay, they push, until finally, Joseph, who's down here in far west, and he goes, remember the building blocks? You're at Jackson, Clay, Caldwell. There was another county on top of here. It's outside of our reservation. And Joseph founds what town? Adam-on-Diamond. And suddenly, boom. Okay, you get October 27th of 1838, Governor Boggs issues his infamous extermination order. In other words, you can continue to drive the Mormons and push them back in here, but I tell you what, you can now, if they don't go, you have any problems, you now have a license to kill. How come okay, tell me, why is Adam-on-Diamond? Why is that so important? I mean, there's far west, but Adam-on-Diamond, wow, that's huge.
Because there's supposed to be a big gathering?
Okay, so Adam-on-Diamond, all kinds of prophecies. That there will be, how many hundreds of thousands of high priests? Okay, 144,000, representative of 12,000 for each of the 12 tribes of Israel. At one point, they will all go to Adam-on-Diamond. And you'd say, you will have the prophets of all ages will be there. And each one will hand their keys to their dispensations back to Adam, and Adam will hand them to Christ. I plan to be the Barbara Walters of the set. Hey, okay. In other words, oh, wow, I don't want to be left out of this. Okay, huge meeting. It's the end. It's the wrap-up of time. And suddenly, when Joseph founds Adam-on-Diamond, which is one of the very few words that I know from Adam's language. People say, are you bilingual? And I go, hey, I can say Adam-on-Diamond. I can say Deseret. Okay, so once Joseph goes outside of the reservation, founds Adam-on-Diamond, you'd say, Lilburn W. Boggs, you can now exterminate those guys. Well, okay, everyone, let us break for, 10 minutes. We now come back and we do wretched up extermination order, and let's get Joseph in jail.
Is it October 7th?
So it's October, 27th. Okay, there's nothing like chicken scratch and actually showing it publicly,
So why couldn't he do it inside the Caldwell County? Why did he have to go up?
Why did Joseph go up?
Yeah.
Well, okay.
Seems like would have saved a lot of...
Would have saved a lot of issues.
Yeah.
So, just put, okay. So if we were doing an Old Testament class, and people talked about where are these different locations, and you put Adam there, they would say Independence, Missouri, Garden of Eden. You would get people in their journals in Far West saying that Joseph said that Far West was a place where Cain killed Abel. And then you get up to Adam-on-Diamond, people would then say, here's where Adam was, and he gathered all his children together, and then he blessed them and told them all things that would happen through time. And then you get tick, 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 here we go.
So it wasn't just.
Yeah, it wasn't just, hey, I like this spot of ground as opposed to this. It was actual ground where ancient prophets had walked.
So did he get a revelation about specific the place, or did
Yes.
he just know on the map?
And in fact, even indicating that altars were found. And it's interesting, Heber C. Kimball describes the altars that were found at Adam-on-Diamond. Here we're supposed to break, and you're all like,
Yeah.
okay. But he describes the altars, and remember we showed you Kirtland temple altars, and you have the Melchizedek priesthood altars. They weren't just, here's an altar and plop, it's like, that they were tiered. There were 3 tiers of altars. Like they went up just like the Kirtland temple where you saw the letters on the pulpit.